Hi everyone, this is John with One Man's Life, and I'm going to tell you how my life's been. We'll do this in a number of segments. Um, I live here now in Southern California with my brother. After coming down from Portland, Oregon, I lived with my mother and grandmother in a house we had bought. And, expecting a life that sounded very rosy when they painted it to me. That's why I went with them when I was 24 years old. I'm now 53 years old. Don't have much to show for my life at all. In fact, I don't have anything, so not much. But anyways, I'm living here with my brother and his family, his wife, and his oldest son lives with us right now. But why he goes to college. But anyways, what I want to talk to you about is living a life in a narcissistic and manipulative family. As a child growing up, I was classified as a hyperactive child. I guess they call it ADHD now. And my mother sheltered me most of my life from friends, social activities. She urged me to go out from here and there, but she was very codependent too. I learned now that she passed away in 2021. She had a lot of issues, according to my dad. But anyways, she sheltered me from life. Therefore, didn't have much of a social life. I went to work and came home and did whatever my mother and grandmother asked me to do. But the way I grew up being told not to question. This is how life is. This is how family life is. It was preached very much to me in my life, to the point I truly believed it. I started questioning it a little later in life, once we moved up to Portland, and I ended up working downtown at a department store at the time, and met a co-worker of mine, much older, kind of like a father figure, you could say. I was in my later 20s, and he had met them and said, "You need to get away from that situation." Again, I took his message with a grain of salt, but continued to live with family. But very tough, very damaging. So many fights and arguments over the years. Did try to leave one time after he said, you have to get away. I had packed up a suitcase and got on the bus and came down to work and stashed my suitcase in one of the offices. But my mother and grandmother were very in tune to everything in the house, and they knew something went on. So they had come down to the department store demanding I leave because there was a family situation, and that embroiled into a fight, or I should say an argument with my boss, sales manager of the department. I ended up leaving and got home mid-afternoon, and we just got in a fight for hours, browbeating me down. I felt sick. I felt like I was going to have a heart attack from this argument. But in the end, they said, well, within a year, if you feel the same, you can leave. Well, that's how it was left. But the following morning, it was back to the same old mental beatdown. They weren't willing to change. I was always at fault for everything. I was a very obedient son and grandson, and I didn't question, but they were very miserable people. Now I realize, I came down here and gone through some therapy, and I have a psychiatrist. And I guess as the therapist and psychiatrist has told me, there's generational trauma. I was diagnosed from my therapist and my psychiatrist as having CPTSD with Stockholm Syndrome. I love my mom. I still love my mom. She was manipulated as a child, but it got worse when she was around her mom and I. It just wasn't good. My mom passed away in September 2021 on Labor Day, but I was also my mom's caregiver for 12 years of her life while I lived at home. She had gone through a nursing home, but before that she was diagnosed with MRSA, and she ended up losing her right leg below the knee and pretty much full paralysis for a long time. But we ended up getting her out of the nursing home because her health was not very good there, and I thought I could do better. And that's when everything got even worse for the next 12 years. I can't imagine what type of life she really lived inside her head and her body. She was a very strong woman. She wanted to live, even though she had so many health problems that were triggered after coming off of being with the MRSA. That's MRSA, if anybody wants to look that up. Not many people survive it, and if you do, you usually end up losing a limb or two. But anyways, just the mental trauma, the arguments, the fights. It was sad. Nobody won in the end. Well, like I said, my mom ended up dying. After my mom passed away, my grandmother had broke her right and then left hip in 2020 and 2021 and was able to come home. So I had to nurse her and take care of my mom as a full-time caregiver. But this was during the COVID years, after I had ended up being furloughed from my job at Macy's up in Portland, Oregon, but never called back because they restructured the company and they let go of 30,000 people across the nation. I didn't know until 2 months later, and they said, hey, you don't have a job. So anyways, went through all the stimulus, and at that point, 2 years of stimulus from the president. No more money coming in. I was talked out of my pension, over $25,000, of signing it over to my grandmother so she could take care of the family. Again, I didn't know what to do. I was stupid, naive. A lot of people will probably say you did it to yourself. But again, people don't understand how I was raised and how it was, as my psychiatrist has said, you were groomed to be their caregiver. So we'll get more into it a little later on. But anyways, I ended up leaving my grandmother 5 days later. I had checked with the local authorities and they said it was okay as long as I didn't owe her anything. I said she took everything of mine. I owe nothing to her. So I ended up coming down here after talking to my brother the day after my mom's funeral. And he said, come on down. You need to be taken care of by us and we'll get you back on your feet eventually. So anyways, this is kind of where I am. It's a quickie, but I'd love to get more into it, get more detail, and see if there's anyone else that feels the same about life. Still struggling. So again, this is John with One Man's Life. I'll see you soon, okay? Everyone take care and love one another. Bye-bye.